Alright, let's talk a little bit about CSS selectors. Now in the last video we learned what a CSS selector is, and in the example we have here with our paragraph, it's going to be the actual P written here. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we want to select all the P's, so every time we see a paragraph or paragraph text in our HTML, we want to apply some specific colors or fonts or any style we could want. Now this is an example of what we call an element selector, because we're taking a broad HTML element, so a paragraph, something that we're going to use multiple, if not hundreds of times in different websites, and we're applying styles to it. So if we go back into our index.html, we can pretty much apply this to anything. So our body, let's say we want to style our body in a specific way. Well, we would just write body, and essentially all we do is we take our element or our tag and we remove the brackets and write it exactly the same minus the two brackets around it. So we would do body, and our syntax for CSS is going to be open curly brackets, and then we'll close our curly bracket at the bottom. And then inside this, we can then go ahead and do whatever we want. Maybe we want a background color, right? So we could select a background color and let's make this black or something along those lines. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we should actually notice this may bring out our Alice Blue a little bit better. And there it is. And honestly, that looks white to me, but I just wanted to show you guys. Let's go ahead and exit back out of this and take a look at some different types of selectors. Now, if you recall, we went through and we learned how we can create IDs. And our example in our index.html was that we created a div. So let's create a div and give it an ID. And then I'm just going to give this a name of CSS example. And then we'll close that div off. Now, as opposed to using the div element, which we could do as well. So let's assume that we have two divs, and I'm just going to create two divs here. Let's do div 1. Actually, let's make 3 divs. So we'll do div, and we're not going to give the second one an ID, and we'll call this div 2. All right, and we'll do div 3. Sorry, I cannot type right now. Now let's go ahead and see what happens when we apply a style to our div, right? And I'm going to do a background color once again. So let's take our div element, so we're not going to do an ID here, and we're going to give it a style of background color. So let's do background color, and let's give this a background color of aqua or aquamarine. And I'm going to go ahead and save that, and let's preview this. Okay, so we'll notice that it's applying that div color to every single one of our divs, right? So it's going to take every div in your website, or if it's on your if your CSS is internally on your page, it's going to take every single div on that page and apply that specific style. But let's take a look at what we can do with the ID itself. So once again, I'm going to exit out of here or minimize. Now let's pop back into our index.html really quickly and take a look at our divs here. So we have our 3 divs, and they all have the same background color applied. So let's assume that yes, we want to make sure that every div in our website has that same aqua blue background color. But for one specific div, and that's div 1, we want to change the style of our text. And we want that to be different, but we want all the text in the other divs to be the same. Well, then we could apply an ID to this div, which we've already done. So we've created ID CSS example, and we could now go ahead and use our ID as a selector in CSS so that we can style this one. So let's go back in here, and below this we're going to create a new style. So I want you to write, and let me go back and check what we called that. It's CSS example. So let's go ahead, and I want you to give CSS example a style really quickly. It can be whatever you want. This is a quick little challenge. Pause the video and go ahead and give it a style, and let me see what you think. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this, and I'm going to just type in CSS style, and we're going to do the same thing with our brackets. And then I'm going to give this a random, let's do text let's just do color so we can change the text color. And I'm going to give this a color of purple just so we can see what's happening here and close this off. Now I'm going to save this, and when we look at this, you'll notice that there is an error. I've done this on purpose. I made sure that I didn't do this correctly. Well, our div 1 still has that black text, so clearly something didn't work, right? And there is a reason for that. Let's go ahead and minimize once again. And the reason is, if we look at our CSS style here, we didn't apply a pound sign in front of this. So all IDs, so take a note of this, all IDs need to start with a pound sign. So it's not like our element where we just write exactly what it is. We need to make sure if it's an ID, we put a pound sign in front. So let's go ahead and save that. And now take a look, and we ought to see that things have not changed, which is not great. Let's go ahead and minimize really quickly and take a look here. Let's see what I did. CSS style, color, blue, violet. Oh, I think I named this div wrong, right? CSS example. All right, so it's CSS example. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now let's reopen it. There we go. Now we have that purple color applied to just one of our divs, while the rest are going to maintain that same background color. Notice that I did make an error there, but I did keep that in the video. I didn't edit it out. That's something that I'm going to be doing throughout this course, because I want you guys to see the typical mistakes that we can be making and then sort of how to resolve them. And we'll see that a little bit more as we get into building websites and we kind of have to troubleshoot and play around the CSS to get things to work. I don't want to deceive you guys. I want to show you guys when I make an error, it's going to be the same type of errors that you guys are going to make. So it's a great way to show you guys what the process is like. And in the next lecture, we're going to go over the class selector and then how we can actually group different selectors and play around with them as opposed to just doing one individually. And we'll be doing that in the next lecture.